everyone. You're like my high school kids. I say hello and they just sit there. My name is Jana Snyder, and my husband is Joel Snyder. He is one of the pastors here at Richfield Life Ministries. And I just want to take a moment and thank all of you for coming. My friend Emily in the back will tell you about 45 minutes ago, I said, what if no one comes? So I'm so glad you guys are here. It just makes this all worth it. And I'm so excited for the information that's going to be shared this evening and for an opportunity for you to get to know Turnpaugh, practice a little bit better. We have two doctors that are here tonight that are going to be sharing, one of which is my doctor, so I'm a little biased. Sorry, Dr. Turnpaugh. I'm a little biased towards Dr. Shannon, but I'm just joking. Both wonderful doctors, and you're going to get to hear from them tonight, and you're going to have an opportunity to ask questions and get answers, and they're going to solve all your problems right here tonight, guaranteed, or your money back. Sorry. I think I'm funny. Anyway. But before we start this evening, I just want to share a little bit of a heart about why we wanted to do this evening, and share a little bit of my story. I live in this community in downtown Richfield, out in the middle of nowhere, and I teach at a local high school here, and some of my colleagues are here. And one of the things that I want to share tonight is I feel really good today. 3 years ago at this time, I did not feel really good. In fact, I was so sick that I couldn't make it through an entire week of school. I had to leave throughout the day. I was very, very sick. My chiropractor is here, wherever he is, Dr. Watto. He will tell you I was very, very sick. My husband will confirm I was very, very sick. And my daughter would tell you that her mommy was not a very good mommy. Not because I didn't want to be, but because I couldn't. My body had shut down and I didn't know what to do. And my friends will confirm. My friends had to come and babysit me because I couldn't sit by myself all day long. I was that sick. And I had been diagnosed with MS. Actually, this week it's been 15 years that I was diagnosed. And so 3 years ago, I had what they thought was an MS exasperation. And they gave me, well, first they gave me an antibiotic, which then made me sick. And the sickness from the antibiotic caused me to have neuropathy, which they thought was my MS. So they gave me a steroid treatment. The steroid treatment shut off my immune system, and it started this downward spiral. And the spiral caused my adrenal system to go into fight or flight, and it would not stop. True? So I went to the doctor because that's what I was supposed to do, and they gave me medicine. And I did not get better. So they gave me more medicine, and I did not get better. And they gave me more medicine, and they could not figure out why I was not getting better. So finally I said, I don't know what else to do. And I had been thinking about functional medicine for a while. I had heard about it, but had not tried it. And so I thought, I have nothing to lose. I'm so sick, I have no options. So I made a call to the lady, and she was awesome. I literally cried through the whole phone call. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Please help me. I was desperate. She could tell I was desperate. So I showed up for my first appointment, and I'm pretty sure I cried through the whole thing, which if you know me, you know I am not a crier. I am not. My husband's the emotional one in the family. Sorry. But if you know him, you'll know it's true. So it was definitely a role reversal for our family. And from that moment, after I got my tests done, and they realized truly my adrenal system was just in constant fight or flight, I began taking my supplements and honestly got off some of the medicines I was taking. And within less than 2 weeks, my husband gave me the 2 weeks, I went through a day and I wasn't crying. I went through a day and I could actually function as a human being. Now, I didn't automatically get better that moment, but it was like something went off in my body, and I started the process of getting better. So that was 3 years ago, and it is a journey and it's a process, and I have moments where my blood work is really wonderful because I'm following good health practices, because I'm a health teacher and that's what good health teachers do. And then there's moments where I'm a human being and I realize that I love sugar. And so sometimes that doesn't go so well for my health because my body and sugar don't like each other. But the process is a journey, and health is a journey and a process. But I would tell you that I wouldn't be where I am today without Dr. Shannon. And I truly count it as a gift from God that I was able to go, and that God knew that that's the doctor I needed to see. And honestly, it changed my life. But not only did it change my life, but my husband now goes to Dr. Shannon, and my daughter goes to Dr. Shannon. It's changed our family. It really has. And so I hope that you will be encouraged tonight. I hope you will be blessed tonight by the information that's shared. And I hope that somehow this might help you in your own health journey, a journey to wellness, a journey to total health, because health is more than just physical. Because when you're physically not well, it affects your mental health. It affects your social health, your emotional health. Sorry, I'm being a health teacher now. But again, I'm just excited for tonight, and I'm so glad that you guys are here. They're going to do a presentation to begin with, and then that will be followed by a question and answer time, which they will take care of that. So if you need water, there's water in the back. If you need restrooms, there's restrooms over there through those doors. So I am going to stop talking so you can hear the important people who are here to share some great information with you. So who's up first? Dr. Turnpaugh.
Is the mic working? Can you guys hear me? Okay. So I'm really the backup tonight. Dr. Shannon's going to take over. So he put the whole presentation together and then said, hey, why don't you come along? So I'm just up here freelancing. He did put a presentation together, and I'm just going to start off, and we're definitely going to open it up to question and answers because we want to make it about you. We feel extremely blessed and fortunate to be able to be here tonight to share this information. We definitely feel that we use the phrase, the high tide floats all ships, so we want to get the information out so everybody can benefit. So I just push, is this ready to go? So you'll see up here something that I talked about. We actually are in the process of trying to put a book together. We call it The Hand of Health. And it came to me once, I was like, if you can see a hand, you can picture how to start the foundations of health. And if you put your hand out, you see you have 5 fingers, and one is kind of removed, the thumb. So I started saying it's how and when you eat, how and when you sleep, how and when you move. And they're the foundations. And we go in a little deeper than just, I eat healthy and I exercise and I sleep at night. So how and when you eat is what you're eating and when you're eating it. So are you eating just before you go to bed? Are you doing times where you're not eating at all? Are you eating the healthy foods? Are you eating foods that are actually the way they're supposed to be, so organic or non-genetically modified? Are they all processed? Are they high in sugar, which you just heard could be detrimental to so many people? So what types of foods are you eating? Have they been stored for a long time? They keep them in the fridge. Do you eat a lot of leftovers? Do you eat a lot of fast foods? And then are there periods where you're giving your body a break and not eating at all and fasting, which we've done for centuries? And then how and when you sleep. So not just are you getting 8 hours of sleep? Are you getting the right amount of sleep hours before midnight, hours after midnight? Are you getting deep sleep? Are you getting REM sleep, the type of sleep you're getting? We typically, years ago, we got up when the sun came up and we went to bed when the sun went down. Now we get up when our job tells us to get up and the alarm clock goes off, and if we're working second or third shift, it's counterintuitive. That's not when the sun's up. Our longer days were typically in the summer, our shorter days were typically in the winter, as the sun went down earlier. We don't live by those kind of guidelines anymore. And the third one is how and when you move, or how and when you move. And so we think of exercise, but we forget about prayerfulness, mindfulness, stillness when we're not moving. So we're always on the go. We talk about the fight or flight and go, 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 go. And fight or flight, I like to call running from the tiger. Because years ago, when you had a stressful situation, you either got out of it or you didn't. So either you got away from the tiger or the tiger ate you. And then it was over, right? There's a book from the 70s, and it's called Why Don't Zebras Get Ulcers? Because they thought ulcers were caused by stress. So why don't zebras get ulcers? And the answer was because when the lion came down in the zebra pack, all the zebras freaked out and they ran. And they either got away or they didn't, but it was over. And we live in a day and a society where the stress is continuous. So we're running from that all the time. It's a different way. We're supposed to have stressors, get over them, and recover. So when we talk about how and when you move, there's different types of exercise, whether you're doing slow exercise, fast exercise, getting your heart rate up, keeping your heart rate down. But we forget about being still. We forget about taking care of ourselves and being mindfulness and prayerfulness in ourselves. And that's so important. So those are the first three. And all of those don't really cost you any money, right? You're gonna eat, you're gonna sleep, and you're gonna move. How you do it is up to you. It's not how much do I have to spend to get better. It's you can ask yourself the first three questions and modify the first three questions without spending any money. Yes, you might change your food budget because you're eating different foods, but if you change what you eat and when you eat, how and when you sleep, and how and when you move, and being still, those things aren't going to cost you anything. And they're the foundations of health. The index finger here is what I need to do to supplement those three. What can I do to support those three? And so that's where we use some nutritional supplementation to support that. And I think that's important. And over here, it's removed, but it's still part of the hand. It's the thumb. And the thumb is, sometimes we do need medications, but it's not the first thing we go for. It's removed. It's far enough away. And there are times and places for medications where they're important. And the last piece we can't forget about is this is a hand. This is the hand that connects you to a community. This is the hand that reaches out and says, can you help me? It's also the hand that reaches out and says, can I help you? It's a hand that puts you in touch with your fellow man. It's part of a community. Nobody gets through these journeys. Very few of us get through these journeys alone. It's very important to be connected and be supported. And who's your support group? So it's the hand of health. And what we do, in my opinion, is we do this. We start with a drug. What drug can I take? What supplement's going to fix it? I'll take the drug and I need a supplement. And we forget about the other three and we make a fist and we get hardened. We get hardened. This doctor's not helping me. Nobody's helping me. We start to lose our support group. We start to become an introvert as opposed to an extrovert. And that's the opposite. And that's one of the things that I personally see, I don't want to cast on anybody else, that I see in healthcare. We start with the thumb, we go to medications. I took it didn't work. I took a bunch of supplements, it didn't work. I forgot about the other three fingers and I became hardened. And that's not the direction we want to go. We want to open our hearts, become more in tune, focus on what we can focus on, take responsibility for our health, and then ask for help from others, professionals or community, who can help us out, and being open to that. And that's one of the messages we want to get across. So whatever you're suffering with or not suffering with, we just started a program called Longevity where we're just trying to maximize people's health who aren't unhealthy, just to analyze what's going on. And so what we have done, we want to try to put these three together so people can do it in the community. We can share information so they don't have to come see us. We want you to get better without having to come see a professional. But in that, we want to make sure we give you the tools in your toolbox to get to that point. So when these go awry and things aren't going well, your immune system gets confused. And an underactive immune system may mean you get sick from pathogens or bugs out there, such as Lyme disease or mold or viruses or whatever it is, because you have an underactive immune system. So your immune system is not acting appropriately that you were given. If you have an overactive immune system and it starts to attack things that it's not supposed to attack, and it starts to attack, these are my little antibodies that attack things, so they're attacking bugs. If they get too aggressive, they start to attack you, and that's autoimmune disease. And you start to get these autoimmune diseases like thyroid or MS or lupus or all these autoimmune diseases. So if we think about what is our ability to not resolve the situation we're in, many times it comes back to an underactive or an overactive immune system. And so at the core of the source, how do we balance that out? How do we regulate the immune system so it's not just this pill's going to kill the bug, because if this killed the bug and I still have an underactive immune system, the next one's going to come along. I'm fertile soil for the next one. If I have an overactive immune system, I can't just take a drug to kill my immune system. That doesn't make any sense, does it? Like, that's what a lot of us do when we have autoimmune disease. Like, well, take this medication, it'll kill your immune system so you don't attack yourself anymore. You scratch your head and say, well, shouldn't I have an immune system? Shouldn't I be able to fight stuff? So some of these medications you take for these autoimmune diseases, it says, this will kill your immune system and you'll feel better, but you might die from a cold. Right? So that's really not a good trade-off. That's not the best trade-off in the world. So how do we balance that out? We want to get back to, yes, deal with the crisis, put the fire out, but then suppress the embers so that it doesn't come back again. So we want to regulate this immune system and help this immune system. So that was my primer for the star of the show. I don't know if you want me to do more. I can talk for hours, so he'll probably just tell me to shut up, but he told me to do the hand of health and then hand it over. Okay. I'll come back up later. I'll answer questions later. So I'll introduce Dr. And by the way, the reason we're here today is because of this great, wonderful interaction, which I feel so blessed to be part of. I just facilitated this, but thanks to Dr. Shannon for the wonderful work he's done. He does it every day, and he says he'll tell you he came to work for me, and I've said to him from day one, we work together. He doesn't work for me, he works with me. So,
thank you very much. I think I've heard Dr. Turnpaugh speak, no kidding, I don't know, 40, 50 times. And every single time I always learn something. So I'm always blessed to be able to sit in the audience and listen to him, even though I get the opportunity to work with him every day. Excuse me. And I'm blessed to be able to be there. And my journey, I'll quickly have my journey, and I'm blessed to have had that opportunity, like I said, to be in his office. But years ago, God put me on a path, and we all sometimes don't know you're on a path. Janet was on a path, and you don't know it until you get there. But things happen in my life, patients' lives, and you kind of start reaching and searching for answers for them. And you want to help, but kind of don't know what to do. And so you start getting on the internet and Googling, for those that jump on the internet, and you get that internet disease. But if you know what you're looking at and looking for, I just searched, my wife was having some health problems, and I searched her symptoms, and I said, symptoms, and I put chiropractor, because I'm a chiropractor and I didn't want to go down that medical route, and chiropractic adjustments and things really weren't cutting it for my wife. And it popped up this book, and it was written by a chiropractor. I'm like, fantastic, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And the title of the book is, Why Do I Have Thyroid Symptoms When My Blood Tests Are Normal? Changed my life. Opened up the book, started reading it, read it from front page to back page, and there was this, I don't know, maybe sort of well-known chiropractor in the back, Dr. Turnpaugh, that had a little blurb in there maybe. Just kidding. Total joke. But I read it, and there was one section in it that was like, oh my gosh, this is my wife. Like, oh my gosh, every symptom. So crazy me, called up Apex Energetics, signed up to start getting some of their supplements, followed this recipe, not that it's that easy, and put my wife on these supplements, and I think through the grace of God, she got better. Certainly, I look back at that not knowing a darn thing with what I was doing. There definitely was a little bit of divine intervention there, because she got better. And I'm like, I gotta learn how to do this. And that was 18, 19 years ago, I think. So, so people ask me, how did you end up right here? How do I end up sitting, blessed next to him in the office in the clinic? I said, I followed a path and I listened to it. So thank you for all of you who have been here. You followed a path to be here. Let's hopefully take the next step to help you get to where you need to go. So what I would like to do is just kind of go through a little bit of the slides that I had. And please, I don't want to hear myself talk. We're going to ask some questions fairly quick. So Dr. Turnpaugh went through most of this. When he talks about eat well, this is a slide. I don't know, has anybody ever seen this slide or something to this effect? Has anybody ever heard of leaky gut? All right, this is leaky gut. So this is leaky gut, more so specifically, this is the lining of the digestive tract in the border, right where the kind of the food meets that part of your stomach. And the one section, or the one side, in between the cells, if you break through that can create a problem, cause leaky gut. And then we call that more of a sensitivity reaction. And this is more specific for gluten. How many people are off of gluten? How many people should be off of gluten? Everybody raise your hands. So and there's a long story for that, which we'll get into. However, that's more of like gluten sensitivity and how the body reacts to it. The other one on the far left here, you can see it goes straight through the middle of the cell membrane, the cell and the nucleus of the cell. That's bad. So Dr. Turnpaugh talked about autoimmunity and how you kind of attack yourself. That's how you attack yourself, and that's more like celiac disease. Can you react to gluten the same way on either side of that? Yes or yes? Right? So why is gluten bad? Well, gluten, the way it's been modified over the years, is not God's grain anymore. It's been over-hybridized over time. So I have to borrow this from Dr. Turnpaugh. It's like having a dog, and you staple a bunch of dogs to it. Is it still a dog? With 17 legs or 18 legs or whatever, and 17 heads. The immune system says, well, I think it's a dog, but it doesn't look like a dog. So maybe we should just attack it just to protect us. And so over-hybridization, if you over-hybridize too much and you end up where we are with gluten now, the body just tends to react to it, especially those patients that your immune system is suppressed and it's not functioning properly. So when you get that overreactivity, guess where else your body would attack? If you tell your body to attack gluten, or gluten tells your body to attack itself, where else would you attack? Anybody. Anywhere else you're having autoimmunity. If you eat a bagel, who said thyroid? I love you. If you eat a bagel and your body goes, whoa, that's a problem, your whole body will explode, and guess where else it'll happen? Right here. And you're going to accelerate your attack against your thyroid. Gluten and Hashimoto's or hypothyroid or autoimmune hypothyroid, a real bad idea. It is oil and water. Okay, it's not peanut butter and jelly on a gluten-free bun. Right? So that, if nobody's ever seen that, that's kind of one of the slides we talk to patients about. A lot of our patients, if those of you are familiar with our patients, that they tell you like, oh, they're going to make you go on a gluten-free diet, and, oh, they're going to make you go off of food. Why would we tell everybody to do the same thing? Well, because how many people have leaky gut? Please raise your hands. Okay? Everybody has a degree of it, and we feel, what, 99% of the patients probably have it when they come in-ish, right? A lot of people have it because of our environment, because of the Roundup and the glyphosate and the toxins that we're dealing with. For those that are young like me and remember Little House on the Prairie, it's not Little House on the Prairie anymore. It's not that clean anymore, and we just have to do better. Can we do better and adapt? Oh my goodness, yes we can. God gave us a really powerful and strong immune system, and what comes with that is the ability to adapt and evolve, but you have to give it the opportunity to do that. Can you evolve and get better and adapt if you have low vitamin D? Can you evolve and get better and adapt if your stomach is like that? Can you evolve and get better and adapt if you're stressed and the hand of health is just a big fist? Absolutely not. But how do we make those changes? But in traditional healthcare, what they tell you is just take a drug, you'll be fine. Why do you want to care about what's wrong? Why do you care why you have acid reflux? Just take Prilosec, you'll be fine. Who cares? Well, doesn't that cause more problems, doc? Well, I don't know, just take the Prilosec, it's good. So it's not, but in cases it is, don't get me wrong. So that's part of the hand of health. That's part of why we kind of go through that. And of course, wait, any questions on that? Let's just start there. Anybody have any questions on leaky gut or foods or gut reactivity? I'll get someone to ask me a question. There you go.
So you're saying there's hope?
There's always hope. Not am I saying there's hope. We thankfully help people gain hope or live hope. I always, when I see a lot of the new patients that come in the office, of course we all do, and one of the things that I pray to do on every single case is my image of patients coming into the office is that you guys are stuck in this dark room and you're just trying your best to find a way out, and you're bouncing off the walls all the time and smacking your heads. And you come in, you're like, oh, that didn't work, and that didn't work. And thankfully, nobody's giving up because there's always hope. And my goal is to give you a light at the end of the tunnel, even though the tunnel might be a long way away, and it might be a lot of hills and bumps and valleys and peaks and whatever, but it's still a light and it gives people hope. It is never false hope, it's always hope, but we try to be realistic in what we can accomplish for people, right? If someone's coming in and they're diagnosed with MS, does that mean that they don't have the opportunity to feel better or be better? Absolutely, we can help that. We can help anybody with I don't feel good-itis, Dr. Turnpaugh's comment. I can't take credit for that. But if you have I don't feel good-itis, there's hope. It's just the degree of how bad the I don't feel good itis is what we have to work for, right? Do you have acid reflux? Do you have burping, belching, or bloating? Do you have stomach pains, irritability? Do you have brain fog? Do you have moodiness, irritability, depression, or anxiety? Do you have asthma, eczema, allergies, or issues like that? Because gut isn't always gut symptoms. It can be other symptoms with skin, brain, and other neurological things. So some people that say, well, my stomach's fine, I don't think I have leaky gut, or I don't have food reactivity, but it doesn't always end up just in the gut, because it can end up in the brain and have symptoms like that. So, people that's a very good question, by the way, but people always say, well, my stomach's fine and I feel good, but I have arthritis and I can barely get out of bed and have tons of fatigue, which we'll talk about in a second here. But most people have a degree of it, even if you don't have gut symptoms. Yeah. Thank you for asking questions, by the way. I don't like to hear myself.
Realistically, how long does it take to see some difference?
For what? Anything in general, or just this?
Just leaky gut.
Again, it depends upon the patient. It depends upon, the degree of what's going on, or how long you've had it, and certainly what else might be going on. When I have a patient that comes in, I always pray that they're an easy patient. No offense, I hope that they're easy. But my definition of an easy patient is get off of gluten and let's fix your gut. And they come in like, oh my goodness, in 3 weeks I feel 80% better. And the labs and the blood work that we do, which is very, very extensive, look great. I'm like, you've had a gluten problem, you just never knew it, or you have leaky gut, let's fix it, and then kind of move forward. And usually in that case, within 3 weeks, we see change. Now, how much change, that depends. But patients that come in with leaky gut or gut permeability that also have adrenal weakness or adrenal failure or hormonal dysregulation or thyroid issues along with that, then you got to kind of help support that whole process, not just fix the gut. But that's really one of the primary things that we have to work on with patients. So if you don't fix your leaky gut, it's really, really, really hard, if not impossible, to get better, because it's such a stumbling block for people. If you eat a healthy orange and it goes into your stomach and it explodes a response, feeds candida or feeds bad bacteria and causes inflammation and slows down digestion, how good's the orange? Right? Or if the orange is laced with Roundup or toxins, you spray all those chemicals on it, or let's pick an apple, I guess it's more toxic sometimes, then the body has to kind of deal with that. So it's not just what you eat, it's what you eat, how you digest what you eat, how you react to what you eat, and how your body deals with that on an immunological level. So jumping ahead, we look at all of our patients as an immune patient, not as a leaky gut, not as a thyroid, almost forgot where you were, and not as like in any condition that they come to us, because it ends up typically being an immune problem most of the time. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Can you comment on how dairy products?
Any food can kind of trigger that as well. It's not just gluten. So we do with these food panel testing to assess what foods you're specifically reacting to. So it's not just gluten, even though we call that there's 3 big nasties, gluten, dairy, and egg, tend to be the biggest ones that are the most reactive for people. And it's not it's not an anaphylactic allergy on everybody. Oh, I got gluten, dairy, and egg tested, but it was negative. Well, there's a bunch of different ways your immune system can react to it. IgE is an anaphylactic. I ate a peanut, my throat's closing up, I need an EpiPen, or I need Benadryl, right? I would assume that you would know that if you ate something as an anaphylactic, you would probably know not to eat it again. Let's hope. But these foods that we test, the way we test them is IgG and IgA. And those are different ways that your immune system can react to a food. It's not classically done in the traditional medical community, but it's the underlying reactions that we're looking for. We're not really looking for the anaphylactic reactions, not that we would say, oh, go eat peanuts and you'll be fine if you can't. But we look for the underlying ones because that's the stuff that's driving the immune response. So IgG, IgA, and then there's an IgM reactivity, but IgG and IgA, you can see those in the testing because that stays longer, the immune system stays longer. I would say G is the National Guard and M is the Marines. Marines come first, react, and that's initially when you make the reaction, the G's and the A's kind of hang around to make sure your body deals with it. But it's hard to kind of find the M right away. So that's the 4 different ways you look for food allergies, but that's a great question, Doc. because dairy can be very, very problematic as well. But we test those to make sure we get a specific food plan approach so that we can help not tell your brain to have that, oh my gosh, what's going on? I call it the freak out moment, where your body freaks out and it drives the immune and inflammation. And then it just keeps driving people's symptoms. So food changes, when you come to see us, hopefully, expect to make some food changes, not because we're trying to make it difficult, but we can't allow your brain and your immune system to have that massive constant reactivity. How are you going to get better and turn off inflammation if your brain goes, keep making more because I just ate a bagel with cheese, whatever, right? Any other questions? Oh, good.
So realistically, could a child or a preteen teenager have leaky gut and these things?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. What age have you seen the youngest patient?
We've seen like 2-year-olds with mass, and you talk in a 2-year-old, you're probably going to see the behavioral changes. Now they're in their terrible twos anyway, so it's stuff. But I had a clinic for 4 years just for special needs children. Out of 201 patients that I had, 200 had a gluten problem. 200 out of 201, and none of them, I shouldn't say none of them, they didn't come in because of gut issues. They came in for learning disabilities, autism, dyslexia, mood, and it was food. They couldn't come in the clinic if they weren't going to change their diet, because I couldn't make a change with that.
Yep. Yep. I mean, I used to, you're talking about the blood type, eat right for your blood type. I used to do more of that before I started kind of understanding the more immune, autoimmune, inflammatory cytokine approach that we do. I didn't see great success with it. I'm not saying that there's not something to it. I just see way better success with the profile that we've kind of modified, which is more of it's called a cytokine profile. What do you think about eat right for your food type? I wouldn't say it's bad, but the same thing. Yeah, so I just never saw the success until I got hooked up with this approach, and it's just way better, you know. All right, let me jump through some of these, and I certainly would love more questions. So, 85% of your immune system starts in your gut. Who knew that? Be honest. Look at everybody's smart. Great. All right. So, when your immune system is reactive in your digestive tract, well, you might not be able to see that, but it can affect brain, thyroid, sinus, adrenals, joints, skin, pretty much any part of your body. So, question about stomach and gut, what if you don't have gut symptoms, can you have your gut driving your problem? Absolutely. Whoops. Oh, move well. So Dr. Turnpaugh obviously went through this. Do you exercise well? Circulation and support stress control. Pick your favorite activities, what I tell my patients. What do you like to do? And patients that just don't have, a lot of fun exercising, something makes you have some joy in that. Walking your dog, hanging out, walking with the kids, playing with the kids in the yard, I don't know, whatever, right? So I just start to kind of have some level of movement. Is it too hard mentally to start to be active? Apathy, I don't want to get off the couch. That would tend to be more, I would look at that as being more hormonal. You have testosterone for men, estrogen, progesterone ratios for women. We obviously get into a lot of that with our patients. Are you too fatigued to even start to think about exercising? What do you mean exercise? I can barely go to work. Remember those days? Thank God they're not anymore. But, you got to exercise to get out of this. Well, doc, I can't even get out of bed. I mean, I have a young patient that for years she was bedbound, and the first thing was like, okay, 5 steps today. I want 5 steps around the room, and then you can lay down. Then tomorrow you're going to do 6 steps, and then you're going to walk to the mailbox, and then you're going to do 5 times to the mailbox, and it's just one foot in front of the other. You can't run a marathon until you take 1 step, right? So if the body is that fatigued, well, the question then becomes, why do I have fatigue? Like what? So I'm tired. I go and get my blood chemistry run, and I'm so tired, but they put me on iron and it didn't work. Or they gave me B12 shots and I'm still tired. Why else could you be tired? And if you have those questions with your doc and you don't get them answered, here they are. Here's the top 10 reasons for fatigue. And if you can't see them, anemia, iron, B12, and then inflammatory anemia are really common. So if you get rid of that list, because that's usually the most common thing that you look at, nutritional deficiencies, food allergies, digestive problems, leaky gut. If you don't break down your food and absorb it very well, how's your mitochondria going to make energy? Right? So efficiently, certainly it works, because obviously we wouldn't be functional. But depression, anxiety, and mental health, people that have a high level of depression or anxiety, there's a lot of energy that's wasted with that. So sometimes we have to have that. Luckily, we have a clinical functional psychologist in our office she does a fantastic job. And sometimes that's the main focus, is just to try to help calm down that emotional stress that's driving all of that. Stress overload in general, adrenal fatigue and HPA, HPG, HPT axis, that's thyroid hormonal adrenal axis, which I'm going to go into in a minute. And that relationship, hormonal imbalances, diabetes, sugar dysregulation. Dr. Turnpaugh talked about sugar. Sugar is really reactive for people. It's called dysglycemia. Even if you don't have diabetes, high fructose corn syrup, not a good idea, right? Or at least in a high amount. Metabolic syndrome is like an early stage or pre-diabetic stage. We have a lot of patients that come in with metabolic syndrome. Who here has high cholesterol? Well, maybe you don't want to advertise all that, but if you have high cholesterol, right, Joel? We don't want to advertise. No, I'm just kidding. If we want to add, so I got put on a statin. Is that your only option? Why else could your cholesterol be high other than your diet? Anybody? Perfect. Yep. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't help the epigenetics, the external environmental factors to help to downregulate your gene or upregulate it. So environmental factors can certainly help that. But yes, that's one. Would you say? Stress in general will do that because it drives inflammation. What would be another one? I just said it. High fructose corn syrup. Sugar drives cholesterol because of inflammation. Inflammation. Cholesterol is an inflammatory marker. So, and maybe your body's increasing your cholesterol because it needs to do something with it. What does cholesterol help you make? What? Right. I mean, your brain's a big fat molecule. It needs a ton of fat, so you need cholesterol for your brain to function properly. But cholesterol is needed to make every hormone in your body. Anybody else know that? So cholesterol, luckily I did, right? Cholesterol is converted into pregnenolone. Pregnenolone then goes left and right. So it goes left into DHEA, and then it goes right into progesterone. When it goes to progesterone, underneath progesterone, a bunch of different steps, it goes to cortisol. What is cortisol for? It's your stress hormone. It protects you. What happens if your body is under so much stress and needs to protect you? What do you think it's going to do naturally? Make a lot of, right? What's going to be depleted when that happens? All the ones above. So the upstream hormones will downstream regulate when you're under a lot of stress. So we tend to see a lot of high cholesterol because your body goes, oh my gosh, I need to help this situation. Pregnenolone will be low, progesterone tends to be low, cortisol will be high. If cortisol is high, at some point it will go really low because your adrenals go from being really able to handle that, and it looks like a grape, and they get really, really, really weak, and they get squished, they look like a raisin, and they don't handle it anymore. So you get adrenal fatigue to exhaustion. You could give this lecture. And when you get to that stage, cortisol's high for a while, and then it starts to come down, and oh wow, it's not an adrenal problem because it looks normal when you get your blood test, and then it goes plummet. So when that goes down, you start seeing this picture on that pathway, we can see what stage you're at, and then certainly we can intervene really at any stage. But that's the problem is people don't necessarily understand, well, docs sometimes don't understand how to look at that, and they get stuck like, oh, you don't have an adrenal problem because look at this. So salivary hormones, we can do these spit tests to kind of assess your adrenal status. Has anybody done a salivary hormonal panel test? And they're really effective because you can see what your cortisol level is in the morning, and it comes down and goes really low at night, and melatonin is just opposite. So for people that can't sleep, sometimes cortisol just stays stuck all the time, and every day you just make more and more, it just stays stuck. And their adrenals don't necessarily weak, so it just stays stuck for a long time. I can't sleep, I'm always really, really tired. I'm gonna take some melatonin. Guess how much your brain loves cortisol and melatonin being high together? Not at all, or not at all, right? Well, I mean, God kind of made it this way for a reason. So my challenge to people is when you take melatonin, it doesn't make cortisol go down. When you reduce cortisol, melatonin naturally comes up. So I love doing the cortisol reduction stuff. I am not a big fan of melatonin for that reason. I always try to reverberate back to saying, well, God kind of made it that way for a reason. Let's not try and change it because he's a little bit smarter. So these are the signs of top 10 reasons for fatigue: chronic infections, Lyme disease, Epstein-Barr, chronic active Epstein-Barr that's non-resolving, other types of infections. COVID certainly can be up there. COVID long haulers. We do see mitochondrial dysfunction, which is energy deficiency, cell danger response. Those are all a little bit more advanced stuff, but sleep apnea, insomnia, sleep disorders. Certainly if you don't sleep, you're going to feel tired. And then thyroid problems or any other autoimmune problems. Anybody have any of those? Okay. So those things we go through daily. We have so many people that come in because they just don't feel good and they have tons of fatigue. But it's not here, take iron, or it's not get off of gluten only. We have to look at the big picture. So one of the things that we do is we do a lot of blood work for those that don't know. But I always ask my patients, which blood test do you want me to miss that would help you? So we do a lot of questions in blood chemistry so we can figure out which way to help you. All right, move well. Oh yeah, that's right, move well. I think I already did that. My fault, I went backwards. Sleep well. So at the very bottom of this, do you really feel that, or know that you feel rested? Or if you don't really feel rested and you're under a lot of stress, I use this a lot with patients, and this certainly, I'm sure you've seen this in different forms, but I always say, God gives you one size stress bucket, I can't give you a bigger one. So you're born with the ability to handle X amount of stress. What happens if you overload that stress response every day, regardless of your capacity? Eventually, you're going to blow a gasket. For those car people, if you go 1,000 RPMs, you're good, but if you stay at 10,000 or 12,000, eventually something's going to happen. If you're sitting in your driveway with your pedal to the metal, the gas pedal all the way to the floor, and you're in park, eventually your car's going to explode. So when people come in and they're stuck in that fight-flight that Dr. Turnpaugh talked about, and you're just never going, you're never stopping, you're always on the go, your body has to compensate for that. And when you're overloading, you get into this alarm phase. I call it the cell danger response. So when your body has these danger signals, it can be a 1 alarm fire or it can be a 10 alarm fire. So if you're at a 10 alarm fire, all these things have to happen to protect yourself. But the end result, what happens is you drive pain, poor circulation, inflammation, you drive energy deficiencies and poor healing, and immune dysregulation, okay? So when you're stuck in this high 10,000 RPM fight-flight, you're driving pain, inflammation, pain and inflammation, pain and inflammation. Guess where that's gonna most target? Where your body's doing this, and where your body has arthritis or other types of, stomach issues or whatever. So it just makes it more. On a chiropractic standpoint, I talk about patients that come in that have like a hip pain. It makes sense, and I think to all of you it makes sense. If you have arthritis, you should make X amount of discomfort or pain, and you can kind of live with it. It's arthritic. We all do crazy stuff when we're younger that you regret. Not that I did that. So can you fix this? Well, you can't fix arthritis. You want to protect it and try and calm it down. Get adjusted, do massage, go see a PT, stretch it out, put some heat, moist heat on there or whatever. But it's not necessarily going to change. You just don't want to make it get worse. But what we find is the amplification of the pain, the escalation of the pain from this response is what people kind of complain about. I have arthritis, but oh my gosh, I can barely move and I can barely get out of bed. Well, it's not from the arthritis, but you could say, oh, I took an MRI and I've got disc herniation. Well, it's not that bad and you shouldn't really have that. Or we took an x-ray of your hip and there's nothing wrong with you. Well, my hip's killing me. So it's the amplification of the pain. We call it the cytokine amplification or cytokine escalation, and it's due to this. So we support this part to downregulate to give you back the ability to handle things. Certainly nutrition and gut, healing your gut is not going to fix your arthritis, but it's going to make it way more bearable so you can live your life and play with your kids and your grandkids and stuff, right? So that escalation, no matter where it happens in the body, is really our kind of what we do on a daily basis. People that try to reduce their stress with things that are stressful is not a good idea. Alcohol, tobacco, right? So, I just need to go and just chill out a little bit. It's still stressful. It's a chemical. So when you have food stressors like gluten or dairy, psychological PTSD or emotional stressors. Those are, I call them big rocks in your bucket. When you have more rocks in your bucket than you can handle, guess what your daily activities are going to cause? It's going to overload really, really quickly, right? So one of the concepts that we use is, let's get some rocks out of your bucket, let's reduce gluten, let's get rid of the gluten, let's fix your gut, and then, okay, great, I'll feel better and I'll calm down. What happens when that doesn't work, or that's not enough? I guess it works just a little bit. So, if you answered to any of those questions, are you moving well, are you eating well, are you sleeping well, is no, I'm not really doing that great. We can help, but why are we different? And I know we've talked a lot about how we look at it differently. And then what kind of patients come to see us, specifically what conditions, and why are we successful? And I think to answer that, certainly why are we successful is we have a really strong team approach. Team Turnpaugh is really dedicated to really work. We work really, really well together to really get the best approach to help you guys, whatever path we need to get you better, okay? But we look at things as an immune issue, or you become an immune patient in our office. So here's how I explain this. And I know Dr. Turnpaugh explains a little bit different, but that bucket that you have, God-given stress bucket, it sits on top of a seesaw, okay? First thing is get as many rocks out of your bucket so you can calm down your stress and calm down your brain and things get better. What happens if your seesaw is like this? Okay, this is your immune system. So the seesaw is your immune system. What happens if every day you eat a bagel, your immune system goes, oh my goodness, and it starts going back and forth, or at least it goes and gets stuck? How big is your bucket now? Right? So things like that once you start having these stressors, these rocks, they don't always cause a problem until you have immune dysregulation. I ate gluten, I'm Italian, I ate gluten all my life, and it was never a problem. You're telling me now I have a gluten problem. Yeah, I'm telling you, you've probably always had a gluten problem, especially since they changed the hybridization of it, but you're reacting to it more now, but you're probably less tolerant of it, and it's causing more of a problem because your bucket's sitting at 20% capacity. So the immune dysregulation, we look at everybody as an immune problem because eventually the immune system activates to protect us in a fight-flight, cell danger response, 10,000 RPM, whatever we want to look at, right? So we always try to re-regulate the immune system. The best supplements, or the best, I guess, few things that you can do, let me rephrase that. What do you think is the number one easiest, best supplement that you can take to help regulate your immune system? Awesome, right? And it's free when you walk outside and get some sun, assuming you don't have sunscreen on and have a lot of clothes on. 30% of your body exposed for 30 minutes a day helps your body make enough D for the day. Arms, legs, face. But some people need more because it's a supply and demand. So we talk to patients about, and check your vitamin D levels because maybe you need more. I have a patient that can do 1,000 IUs of vitamin D per week, and then otherwise she gets too toxic. And I have patients that do 20 to 30 or 40,000 a day, and that's what they need. So anywhere in between is where you are going to fall, arguably. Okay? All right. Questions on any of that? That was a bit of a long-winded. No? Just blood testing. Yeah, I'm taking 5,000. Well, let's see. I'm taking D. Well, let's see what it looks like. Let's see what your levels look like. And typically, we want to see it around 80 if you're autoimmune, or at least above 55 if you're not autoimmune. But 55 to 80 is where I target. I know Dr. Turnpaugh pretty much targets everybody around 80, right? So, and then once you get on it, then we want to make sure that your body's not getting too much vitamin D. It's very rare. I've really not seen too many people have too much problem with taking high levels of D, but you have to be careful. I know last year they put out that everybody should take 10,000 IUs of vitamin D with COVID, or for your immune system to help with COVID. It makes me a little nervous because you don't know if that's too much for you or not, but it takes a while to really have a lot of negative symptoms for that. It's called hypercalcemia, where your calcium levels get too high if you have too much D. Yeah?
So if you're outside a lot, something you have to consider, or?
That's a great question. Some people, they're outside a lot. They don't necessarily store their vitamin D too much. There was a study in Australia, the lifeguards.
Yeah, Australian lifeguards, they took Australian lifeguards out in the sun. They're healthy because they're lifeguards, and routinely their levels came back at 80, so that's where we put it at 80.
Yeah, so that's why it's targeted at 80. But they're lifeguards and they're out there all the time getting D, but it's interesting because there's a lot of patients it's not as effective as you would think. You just have to test and figure out what your body wants. Now remember, it's a supply and a demand hormone. So if you're demanding an immune regulation, D helps. If you picture like that little triangle underneath the seesaw, I always say vitamin D at healthy levels gives you a railroad tie, which means your seesaw is it's a lot more stable. It's not a great seesaw, but it makes your immune system a lot stronger.
Vitamin D, that's considered what's called fat soluble, correct?
Yes, sir.
So how do you supplement, how do you kind of support that?
Well, if you have a gallbladder, you'll be able to digest it because your liver makes bile, stores it in the gallbladder. So as long as you have a liver and a gallbladder, but if you lose your gallbladder or you don't have one, you'll still be able to process that because you'll make bile. But we have to support it because it is fat soluble. It can store in the body. So we just check our levels on our patients regularly to make sure that they're not getting toxic. Does that answer your question? Okay. Good questions. We good? All right. All right, so what patients do we commonly have? I just kind of wanted to give you some idea of just the I don't feel good-itis patients. We tend to see a ton of fatigue patients. Joint pain, back pain, certainly we're chiropractors, so we've had a lot of those patients. And a lot of people come in with fatigue and stomach issues, and it kind of refers to the back. So we see a lot of those. Digestive problems, leaky gut, SIBO. Anybody recognize that? Small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Thyroid problems and weight problems. I can't lose weight no matter what I can do. Cholesterol, metabolic problems, Lyme disease, and co-infections. Janet told me that we were going to hopefully talk about a little bit Lyme disease, which we certainly can. Who here has had a tick or has Lyme disease? Okay. We have a lot of patients with Lyme disease, so we can get into that. Certainly whatever questions you want to go towards that. Just give me a minute. COVID long haul. It's more of an ongoing immune dysregulation. It's a cytokine dysregulation. It's similar to a lot of our long-haul Lyme patients, so it's kind of fit our office really, really well with how we've been able to approach that. Certainly, that is a little bit of a different animal. We just are looking at different changes with that. Autoimmune conditions, any and all we have, Alzheimer's and dementia. There's a really good book by Dr. Dale Bredesen. And if anybody's read that book, it's thank you, The End of Alzheimer's. I think I have it right now. It's been a long day. I started at 7, so maybe I get a little bit of a break, right? Anyway, autism, PANS, and PANDAS. Anybody hear of PANS or PANDAS? Yep. So pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric syndrome, pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric syndrome associated with streptococcus. So strep infections or not, we can handle all of that. Diabetes, prediabetes, hormone dysregulations, healthy age. We do, one of the most fun for me, I shouldn't say that. I do totally enjoy helping people get better, but as a change of pace, we have patients that come in with our longevity program. One of the other doctors deals a lot with that, but I do see patients that come in that just say, hey, I feel fine, but I just want to make sure I'm healthy. So it's the healthy patient, the healthy aging patients. And we have a lot of specific blood tests that we can run to check for genetic markers and cholesterol markers and advanced lipid panel markers to see how well you're doing and kind of give you a scorecard, as well as what we can do to help you guys age a little bit more gracefully. So why are we successful? We do a lot of blood chemistry to find out the reason for what's going on, and we really kind of hang our hats on a lot of specialty advanced testing. Lyme, digestive tests, food allergy tests, which I know Dr. Watto had talked about, but we do a lot of those. Mold testing, SIBO, adrenal, hormonal, and we have a specialty lupus arthritis test that we have for patients too. So not that everybody gets all of those, but as you sit down with us, we have, our first visit is 1 hour, so we spend a ton of time figuring out what's the best way, not only to run your labs, but the best way to test you, and then kind of have that conversation. Once those tests comes back, the second visit is another hour to say, here's what's going on, here's the best course of action, and kind of formulate the plan. So we spend a lot of time with patients. How many of you have had an office visit with your MD more than 8 minutes, right? So unfortunately in the insurance model, they have an 8-9 minute limit. Now, we don't accept insurance, we don't take insurance. We would love to accept it, but our model doesn't fit that sick model. our wellness model, we have to take time to talk to you. There's no way that I can even order the labs in 8 minutes. So we need a lot of time to figure out what to do so that we can help you, okay? It's not your usual experience. I got to get my glasses up for this one because I can't read. Experience at our clinic, the Turnpaugh Health and Wellness Clinic, is not your usual medical experience. We feel that you deserve better health and provide an entire care team of support to help this happen. We take a whole body approach to health and wellness, incorporating a team of providers, a personalized plan, and ongoing support to help you on your road to better health. Now that's on our website. I thought it was really appropriate because we do look at the body as a whole and not as some of its parts. So you're not just going to be a joint pain problem or a thyroid, you're going to be an immune whole person problem that we'll look at all together. This talks about first visit. It's on the website. We kind of pretty much talked about that, what's going to happen. And we have a lot of wraparound services in the office, basically set to see what exactly you need, or setting up what exactly you need, from functional medicine, integrative medicine, chiropractic, IV nutrition therapy. We have 3 IV nurses in Mechanicsburg, and then I know we have a couple others, but we do a lot of IV therapy for patients. Excuse me, massage. We have 3 health coaches now, nutrition health coaches. We keep adding more people, so that's why I keep asking, like, where are we at now? We're over 50 people that help our patients. Functional psychotherapy, acupuncture, hyperbaric oxygen, which I'm believing is coming back to Mechanicsburg, thankfully. Optimal wellness programs, anti-aging and longevity medicine, immunotherapy or LDA, LDI for allergy therapy, reflexology, foot detox, peptide therapy, craniosacral, pulse PEMF, concussion, and phlebotomy. 3 locations that we have a lot of patients or places and people to help. Really, our success is because we all work really hard together and really well together. We have a lot of providers that have that same vision. You know, I'm very blessed to say that Dr. Turnpaugh and his wife Heather have really laid out a wonderful vision of health. And I know Dr. Turnpaugh would agree that it's Heather that kind of says, no, we need this, we need this, we need this, and she keeps adding. It's true. And so all of a sudden one day we're like, oh, we're going to do this. Okay, great, we're doing that now. But it's always to the patient's benefit, and we're always looking for answers. Even the most severe cases that we have, we're always trying to look for answers. So I always tell my patients, if you stick around long enough, if you have such a hard problem, something's not working in the right direction, we're going to figure it out. We just give us a little bit of time. So, yep.
Do you find that you experience opposition in any way?
Wow. Every day. In regards to allopathic providers, I think our patients are coming in now frustrated because no one's listening. You know, I get the same thing. I don't want to keep taking drugs. I don't feel well. The pandemic has really pushed people to think of, am I really healthy or am I not? And most of the new patients that are coming in are basically just kind of running away from that model. And you know, I think Dr. Turnpaugh, if you can come up and talk about that, that'd be great. Opposition, I mean, I'm a chiropractor, so there's always like, you know, some of that kind of stuff that we get as chiropractors. You're not a real doctor, you know, but, you know, I've heard that for years, and it doesn't hurt my feelings, because if you're a real doctor and you're just treating symptoms, then great, I'll be not a real doctor. But Dr. Turnpaugh.
Opposition, what do you mean by that?
Just making sure it worked. Check.
You said opposition. What did you mean by
What do you
opposition?
mean by opposition? Like from the patients or from the world of community health?
I would say either side.
Well, I think it's a different level, because most of us grew up in a society where you go to the doctor, and it's a different way to look at it. Very rarely do you go to the doctor and he says, or she says, what are you eating? How are you sleeping? How are you moving? So we've gotten away from that, but that's how it used to be. Anybody ever heard of the graham cracker? You know how the graham cracker got here? By Dr. Graham, because he used coarsely ground, stone ground flour to help kids with asthma. We used food as medicine 100 years ago, and then we forgot about it. So we get some opposition because it's not the norm in society. You wouldn't think of, you know, there's a book called When is a Potato a Pill? And when is food medicine? So we get some opposition, but the patients who come to us are generally frustrated, so they're looking for a new approach. Then we have a little hospital down the street from us called Johns Hopkins, who we have to deal with every day. Hershey Med, Lancaster General, Penn Medicine, all these hospitals. So we have to be able to communicate with them because we don't want to dismiss ourselves from the medical community because they play a huge role. They're a huge benefit to patients and they have an enormous benefit to society. We need to learn to work with them. And so it's not against them, it's with them. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to use, rather than testing that they're not familiar with, we try to use their testing and show our results based on their testing so they can see the progression in their world. Because we have to be that hand that reaches out we talked about earlier, and that's the hand to the healthcare provider too. That's the hand, if they weren't taught that, but they still have tremendous knowledge. They didn't get to these positions because they're ignorant. They're really smart people who didn't go into healthcare to not help people. So we want to be that hand that can help them. Do we have opposition? We do. It's on us to handle it in a way that is open and soft, open-hearted. So do we have opposition? We do. Do we want an easy road? No, we didn't choose the easy path, and that's not the road we're supposed to be on. But we still need to make our pitch to help the community at large. Our goal isn't us against them. It's come along because the high tide floats all ships. Whether it's a hospital or an allopathic doctor that has never been exposed to this or not. I have had over 200 physicians shadow me. Many times, I'd say a third of them are anti what I do. And it's my job to show them what I do and educate them, not convince them, not teach them, and not bash against them, just open my heart to them. So we do see opposition every day. And 26 years, I got a lot of scars. I've had a lot of people hang up on me, a lot of people tell me I was crazy. You just got to maintain your focus for the patient's well-being. And you have to realize, yeah, this is a new bridge. Sometimes before it's an 8-lane highway, it's a muddy dirt road. So we've been on the muddy dirt road for a long time. So yeah, we do see a lot of opposition. It's on us to be better communicators. Yeah.
Great question. Questions? Thank you for your time, by the way. Any questions? Yep.
The children that you work with that showed either autistic tendencies, when they changed their diet, what kind of change did you see in those children who had been diagnosed with autism?
So I used to do a big lecture just on that. And there are a lot of studies that show that diet makes a change, but as Dr. Shannon has said, it's not just diet. So if there's 4 legs to a chair and you fix one of them, it's not going to fix the problem. So in the clinic that I had, we had a 12-week approach. And to come in, we didn't want to turn anybody away. I have a special needs child, so I didn't want to turn anybody away. But if I have 12 weeks, I can't have you come in slowly. You need to buy in, because I only have 12 weeks. My wife would say, you have 12 weeks to fix a brain of a child with autism. You can't do it a little bit at a time. You got to go in full bore. So the diet absolutely is a must, because every child with autism has leaky gut, period. End of discussion. But it's more than, as Dr. Shannon said, it's more than just diet and gut, but it's a huge part of it. So we won't, I would say it reverse. How many children can we fix or remediate that don't change their diet? I'd say very few. On the other hand, diet is a huge part of that. Yeah. And I used to be less of a effective communicator, and I would give lectures. I said, if you have a child with special needs and you're feeding them gluten, it's child abuse. It's just flat out child abuse. So, and if you, and I just had to hit him that hard. And I've been through it. Like, I'm not telling you talking down to you, I'm telling you as a dad. Like, I'm not telling you as a doc, I'm telling you as a dad. So, and sometimes it's hard to get over those messages, and if you have a short period of time, the knife has to get sharper to have that messaging. So.
Questions? Any Lyme questions? Any questions? Yep.
Wheat and hybridization. If a wheat is labeled as organic, is it non-hybridized?
No, so if you take, there's a great book called Wheat Belly, and so what happened was Norman Borlaug tried to end world hunger, graduated from Stanford, gave him the Nobel Prize in 1970 for his efforts to end world hunger. And what he did is he hybridized, which means he bred a Great Dane and a Chihuahua 4,000 times in a year and came out with a new dog. It's a new breed. That's still organic because it wasn't genetically modified It's not GMO, it's still organic, it's hybridized. It's bred to a different way. So it's hard winter wheat as opposed to the wheat fields. So they grew wheat in Pakistan and India, which never grew wheat before, in such a quantity they had to close the schools down to save their wheat fields. And it couldn't even grow before. So this is a new crop. It's actually called a Frankengrain because it doesn't look like it did before. It's something that we've never seen before in the history of mankind. And that's why we think, there's two reasons. That's one of the reasons why we think the immune system says, well, that's not what I'm supposed to see because I haven't seen this before. And then if it's not organic, typically they spray glyphosate on it to ripen it all at the same time. So now you get a hybridized, even though it's organic, it can't be organic if you spray chemicals on it, but it's non-GMO. And so they say it's glyphosate or Roundup. It's hybridization. I say, yep, it's both. It's if you put chemicals on a new grain, it's just new to the body. You can go to Europe and eat it? Yeah, so, I'm sorry, I don't mean to. So this gluten is just, I've lectured on gluten for a long time. So it's a mixed bag. We have patients that can go to Europe and eat it. In Italy now, it's the law, newborns have to be tested for celiac because it's such a problem over there. So you can go all through Italy and you get a lot of gluten-free stuff, even though Italy's the king of, pasta and wheat. So you can because it's native grain, it's original, it's einkorn. You've heard these einkorn wheats or ancient grains. And for some people that works. For some people that works. For others, once you become sensitive to this Franken wheat, you also become sensitive to the native. So once you've turned on those antibodies to this wheat, you may turn it on to even the old stuff that your body was used to because you became too sensitive to even handle that. There's a good friend of ours who, he's a world-renowned lecturer. He actually bought a house in France. He does really well. He bought a house in France. And he goes there because he can eat the wheat and his family can eat the wheat because of that. And they call it bag bread. And what they mean by that is if you was day old would be hard. Like I remember growing up and the bread would get stale, you get hard. So over there, if you get a sandwich at the shop in the morning, by the evening you can't eat it because it's so hard. That's bag bread and they can handle that. There's areas in Israel where they have closed off and it's the original wheat that they had years ago. For some, that is a safe way to go, and for others, it's not. So we have patients that go over to Europe. Some do great, some crash and burn. It depends on the level of their immune dysregulation. So. So what I would say and what I would like to is it's not taking them off gluten and going from neuroatypical to atypical, but if you want to get to neurotypical, gluten almost assuredly or diet has to be part of it. So it's not going to be just diet. But this gluten movement and red dye movement, it didn't come out of doctors. It came out of moms. Moms said, when I changed my child's diet, they got better. And they're met with the resistance of the medical field saying, that's not possible. There's nothing to red dyes. There's nothing to gluten. And the parents were the one that moved it. And then the rest of us, all of us in the healthcare field, caught up to the moms. So diet plays a huge role. It may not be the only piece, and it probably isn't the only piece, but it's part of the piece. The number one influence on your body, other than the air that you breathe, is the food that you eat. So if you're constantly putting garbage information to your specific system, which may be perfect information to somebody else's system, but if you're putting information in that's confusing, it's just not going to give good. The biggest nerve we have is the vagus nerve, and it goes between our gut and our brain and our gut. So I wouldn't say it's a magic, my kid stopped eating gluten and the next day the lights went on, and it's not that case. My son, if he eats gluten, his ears get bright red, he drools on himself, and you can't understand a word he says. And I know that for a fact because when my cousin came down to visit, we don't allow gluten in the house. He's now 17. I think he's amazing. But he's 17 when this was when he was 7. And we don't allow gluten in the house because we didn't expect the 7-year-old who was neuroatypical to understand. So it wasn't fair that the rest of the family could eat and he couldn't. So my cousin brought a roll in. He didn't know better and he ate it. And as the story goes, my cousin, who's really smart and a lawyer and all that, she's so smart she's stupid. And so
This is getting taped, just
What?
so. It's getting taped.
I don't care.
Joel, strike that from the record. Strike that from the record, Joel, please.
So she put the roll and he ate it, and anyway, we're like, what happened to the roll? What happened to the roll? And I said, Christian, did you eat the roll? He goes, I didn't eat roll, Daddy. I didn't eat roll. And I was like, it's okay if you ate it. He goes, oh, it was good, Daddy. About 3 minutes later, his ears turned bright red, started drooling, running around the house, couldn't understand a word he said at all. And so that's the wake-up call for people that don't understand. Like, that's what he lives with every day if we give him, macaroni and cheese and chicken nuggets like a lot of parents. And I'm not judging, but that's what parents do because that's what the kids gravitate towards. And they say, well, we'll do ABA therapy. We'll do different therapies to teach them. That's not going to change the fact that his brain is on fire from the diet that he ate. So we did a ton with him. Some of it had to be diet. Because if we did everything else under the sun and he was exposed to that roll, that's what his brain's going to do. So it's not the cure, it's part of the solution.
I agree,
No, I used to do study after study after study after study, and I've lectured all over the country on gluten to gastroenterologists. Like, this is the medical community. And to your point, do I get pushback? I got tons of pushback because I'm teaching gut health to gut doctors.
Wasn't that the one in Chicago? And
Yeah, the one in Chicago. He's like, there's nothing to that. And I put up the next slide, and then I was a little bit less soft.
Your Irish came up, right?
My Irish
Your Irish came up a little bit? Yeah.
And I said, oh, there's nothing to that. So, and I put up a slide, and I said, well, here's from a new, maybe this is new. And it was like 2012. And I said, no, this is from 2008. Oh, so it's not new, this is old. And I said, but maybe it's a journal you're not familiar with. I said, oh, it's from the Journal of Gastroenterology. This is your journal, and it's 4 years old. And you're telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. This is your journal, and it's 4 years old, and you're challenging me from the crowd? This is the science. Maybe you need to catch up. So
He got quiet a little bit after
well,
that.
and I should have calmed down. But I was a little bit, so it's a difficult conversation because now we are seeing it because we've extended the hand. A lot of the GI docs around us now are saying, yes, there's definitely something to that. I'm going to handle this acute problem in your gut. They can handle this underlying inflammatory cause.
And we now get inter-referrals all
we
the
do get
time now.
referrals back and forth, and there's
Yeah.
times we have to refer to them too. So, but it's a learning curve that isn't coming fast enough, specifically for a neuroatypical child, because the 7-year-old doesn't have 15 years for the medical community to catch up to how to get them better, because now they just grew up in a situation where their brain wasn't allowed to flourish. That's not fair. That's not fair to that child.
Great question. Yep.
Last year, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune PMR. And in this journey, when I had brought up the question to my doctor about gluten, don't laugh, she says, well, I don't think that's a possibility because for most patients after the age of 40, you shouldn't have a gluten problem. You're going to have it, you're going to have it in the earlier phases of your is there an age that gluten stops, or can it go later in the years?
Well, the Roundup hybridization was what, 1989, or did they change the hybrid? They over-hybridized it?
They
or-
started hybridizing in 1956.
But when was it? It was over-hybridized
Yeah.
or whatever in the late 80s or something. Unless they totally went back to the old grain, I don't see how that's possible because the food that's out there is all over-hybridized wheat.
The oldest patient I had that came in with a gluten sensitivity, which lived a normal life up until this point, was 83 years old. At 83, and her answer was the same. I've done this for 82 and a half years. There's no way it's this, right? There's no way it's this. It was. It changed her life. At 83, she changed her life. I've had many 70-year-old patients. It's analogous to going to your skin doctor and saying, my skin cancer can't be from sun exposure because I've been exposed to the sun for the previous 40 years and didn't get skin cancer. Why on the 41st year did it turn into skin cancer? And they would say, well, it's the chronic, constant irritation that led to a disease state. Now that's an idea they aren't familiar with and wrap their head around. You say, maybe it's the 40 years of gluten irritation to my gut that irritated my immune system enough to lead to PMR. Maybe that's what it was. And so it wasn't that, maybe I was just strong enough and stable enough to handle it for 40 years until my tolerance went down.
At some point, your bucket overloads, your body can't handle it. Your adrenals start to weaken to a point where you're like, okay, now I can't protect you anymore, and you start to drive those symptoms. So autoimmune conditions, there's a lot that you can do to help yourself, not just take a steroid and turn off your immune system. There's a lot that you can do to help, and we see it every day. But just to say, sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. Just to say that gluten is not triggering it because you're older, it's not appropriate. Yeah. Back there.
I have a Lyme's question.
You have a what?
A Lyme's question.
Okay.
So how do you help people with Lyme's disease tastes different than maybe like a Lyme's literate doctor where like some of those just focusing on antibiotics or herbal that they don't think for anything else about Lyme?
Well, we are all Lyme literate doctors. We're all part of the whole ILADS community. So I think our approach is different simply because it's not just kill the bug, it's work on the health of the host. So we have so many chronic Lyme patients that come in, and certainly acute patients that come in. Antibiotics are definitely necessary in a lot of those cases. But if you've been on antibiotics for 2, 3, 4, 5 years or months, what's going to be any different by adding another month or another year? So the challenge with that is it's not always kill the bug. You have to help the individual get better. And I always say when you get bit by a tick at this part of your life, your past health experiences and what your body has dealt with before matters. You get neuroimmune prime, things that happen your body has to deal with. And also your genetics matter, and the length of time before when you get bit, when you get diagnosed, all matter. So everybody is different, but that unfortunately, other than Lyme literate doctors, tends to not be having part of the conversation. So wherever the patient's presenting, or how they present, I should say, and what their history was matters a lot. If you've taken a lot of antibiotics over the course of your life when you were a kid with ear infections, you can create this thing called biofilm, and biofilm gets really dense over time with more and more antibiotics. So unfortunately, Lyme loves to kind of hide inside biofilm at times. And I always say if your biofilm, which isn't great, but we all have it, we need to keep it at bay, and your immune system tends to keep it at bay when you're healthy, biofilm tends to look like a wiffle ball. And that's okay for the body, because when Lyme tries to hide in there, we can see it and we can get to it, and the immune system unfortunately isn't great to handle it because it's a spirochete, so it tends to need help. But if you've created really, really dense biofilm, I say it looks like a bowling ball, and you need a sledgehammer to get to the Lyme disease that can kind of hide inside there. So the challenge with that, and one big reason why we're different, is understanding and knowing all the different aspects of Lyme, from the patient that presents in their health and their immune system to the fact of, we don't just test for Lyme, we test for tick-borne infection, which tends to be unfortunately missed a lot. So our testing is very diverse to make sure that we know exactly what infections or infection that the patient has, and then what's your vitamin D, what's your glutathione levels, what's your gut health. That all matters for patient recovery. And then the approach is not always antibiotics all the time. It's where are we at, where's the patient at, did you have antibiotics before, what's your biofilm? So the questions have to be asked, and certainly it becomes more specific on that approach that we take for the patient. But our approach is immune-based, but it's health of host, not just strength of bug. It's not just kill the bug and 2 weeks of antibiotics, you're fine, because there's no such thing as chronic Lyme. That's totally wrong, because there's so many people that when they take 2 weeks of antibiotics, if you have a wiffle ball, maybe it will resolve. But if you have a bowling ball and Lyme hid inside there, 2 weeks, you barely even nicked at that bowling ball to get into the infection. And then, you had 2 weeks, you're good. Well, it didn't even touch it, maybe. So it depends upon the individual, and we're very, very astute at trying to figure out more specific ways to help you on an individual basis. Want to add to that? That was
I'll ask you another
perfect.
question.
That was
You're
great.
perfect.
Wow.
I think if you talk to most of the high echelon Lyme literate doctors, like Dr. Horowitz is one of the foremost doctors, he skims over it. He says, cut wheat, gluten, and dairy out of your eggs, or out of your life. Wheat, dairy, and eggs, they got to go. And then we'll kill the Lyme and then fix your gut and fix your mitochondria. So he spends an awful lot of time on killing the bug, but he mentions the diet and the leaky gut. He just kind of sloughs it away. But he won't. Most of the time he'll tell you those things. And most of the Lyme literate doctors have gotten pretty good at, we're not an island. There's a lot of people that do it this way, whether it be herbal or antibiotic, but that focus on health of host. We think we do a really nice job of what Dr. Shannon said of health of host. We focus on paramount. So it's how healthy you were, and I stole this from him, how healthy were you when you got bit by the tick? And it's not always a tick, obviously, but we just use that as an example. So where were you at? We'll see a family of 12, 6 have Lyme and the other 6 don't have Lyme. It's kind of naive to think that the 6 that don't have Lyme. They do, they just can tolerate it. And so the ones that can tolerate it, they went into it differently. So it's health of the host.
Yeah. And nobody's perfectly healthy at any given stage, and there's a degree of that, and that's an ongoing thing we all have to work on. There was a question over here. Yep.
Allergies and asthma.
Uh-huh.
Talk about that a little bit with the gluten thing.
Okay.
And is that like seasonal type allergies? Is that food allergies? Like what is that? Or are they tied?
You want to tackle that?
There's a condition, I know about it because I suffer from it. It's called wheatia, wheat-derived exercise-induced anaphylaxis, which most of us would call exercise-induced asthma. Mine just happens to be from wheat. It's not from the wheat epitope that causes celiac. It's from the omega gliadin instead of the alpha gliadin. So they check commercially for alpha gliadin. I have omega gliadin, so I have wheat-derived exercise-induced anaphylaxis. So what it does is it raises my level of bucket to be overflowing so that I developed allergies to cats and dogs and horses, right? And hay fever and pollens and different things. So when I reduced, in my case, completely eliminated gluten, it reduced my overall allergy profile. So it doesn't mean that if you put a cat on my face, I'm not going to get allergies. I'm going to. So, but I can handle it much better than I did before because, to his brilliant explanation, my bucket was lower. I took a lot of rocks out of my bucket. So.
That's a question.
How much of allergy is related to leaky gut?
I mean, there's a definite relationship. If you look at this this is our life on a piece of paper. Every single day, like I kind of talk about this. On the right side, the immune system, it's called Th2, and then on the left side, it's called Th1. Th2 is T helper cell, and a T helper cell drives allergy and inflammatory response that way. So it's more of an immune dysregulation that kind of happens. So, can gluten drive allergies and autoimmunity in specific? Absolutely, but it's more about regulating the immune response as how your body then perceives an allergy. So if your bucket is empty and you walk outside and you're really allergic to pollen, at some point, like Dr. Turnpaugh said, you stick a cat on his face, at some point it's gonna flare up. So it's just it matters more about patient's immune regulation capacity and what you can handle. But certainly if you're allergic to peanuts or cats or dogs and you're around them, eventually that's gonna be a quick trigger to kind of react. So it's gluten and leaky gut in general, it kind of hypersensitizes that system. 85% of your immune system starts in your digestive tract, so there's a strong correlation to gut issues or ongoing gut issues, regardless of how it started, and driving this dysregulation, which is why on the bottom corner there, if you can't see that, it says, it's the stomach and the stomach lining and food and reactivity. It's a really strong component to driving allergies and immune dysregulation.
And I think I just want to piggyback because your question was how much is leaky gut related to allergies? So allergies, if you break it down, it's this abnormal interface between external and internal environment, right? So whether it be your skin that has an allergy or you get rhinitis, stuffy nose, itchy eyes, lungs filled with fluid. These are all of our, what we call, except for our skin, hollow cavities, or basically a modified skin cell, which has been folded inside of us. So think of our lungs kind of folded inside of us, and our digestive tract folded inside of us, and our nasal cavity folded inside of us. So it's an interface between external and internal environment. And so if you have an irritation on your skin or your eyes or your nose or your lungs, it's similar to your gut. And so it would be naive of us to think that those tissues are not involved in an irritated fashion. Now, what's the source? Is it food? Is it pollen? Pollen's going to affect my lungs more. Food's going to affect my gut more. But all of these mucosal linings that have mucus on them, they all have very similar properties with this epithelial cells. So if we get an irritation in one, it's going to affect the other. So it's like the stress bucket. The gut's going to be involved when we have allergies. So if you put a cat on my face, it's going to compromise my intestinal lining, and I'm only going to tolerate easier foods. So foods that I could probably tolerate on a good day, I'm probably not going to tolerate on a bad day. That's from the cat leading to a food intolerance. It could be the other way around. The food leads to a cat intolerance because they're not independent. As he said, we're not the sum of our parts, we're the whole. So there's a tremendous interplay between all of our mucosal linings, including our gut.
Anybody else? Yep.
Wasn't me. What?
Wasn't me.
It was my twin brother. So it's controversial. It's controversial. So less than 50% of the people with confirmed Lyme disease ever remember being bit by a tick, and less than 20% have had a bullseye rash. We know that it's transmitted from mother to child in placenta. Fact. We know that it can be transmitted sexually. Documented cases are rare, but we know that it can. Its most close relative is syphilis. They're both spirochetes. They both look the same. They both act the same. So if it can happen in syphilis, it's naive to think it can't happen in Lyme, Borrelia burgdorferi. It absolutely functions the same. So the average life of a tick is 2 years. We call it nature's dirty little needle, right? They last for 2 years. The average life of a mosquito is 2 days. So could it, I'll talk in theory and then I'll talk in reality. So theoretically, if that mosquito picked up the disease and transmitted it to an animal or a human, yes, it could happen. The probability is much lower, and they'll say that it can't happen, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense. And then how do we account for the 50% of confirmed? For every confirmed case, we anticipate there's 10 others that aren't confirmed, right? So if there's 200,000 cases, there's really 2 million, right? So how do we account for the 50% never bit by a tick, never had a bullseye rash, and have a confirmed diagnosis of Lyme disease? What we tend to do is we throw them in a bucket and say, you must have been bit by a tick, you must have not noticed it, you had a bullseye rash, you never saw it. We start to justify our insufficiencies in explanation. So I won't say that your Lyme disease came from a mosquito. If you said, I think it came from a mosquito, I would say the science dictates that it could have. Could it be sexually transmitted? Absolutely. Is it rare? Yes, it is rare. It is rare. But I do think it can happen, and the science has started to come out to prove that, because we want to further understand those that we don't understand, and we don't understand at least 50% of the cases of how they got there. So I don't know if that answers your question.
The deer tick. I mean, there's other ticks that carry infection. I don't have an answer for that.
Why specifically is the deer tick the one that carries that?
So
They carry tick-borne infection. They carry babesiosis, anaplasmosis, ehrlichia, Bartonella. There's others, but I don't.
one of the reasons the little ticks, the little teeny tiny larvae ticks, what we call deer ticks, they don't necessarily carry it more. They're hardest to see. So you're more likely to see it, and if it's a little teeny tiny freckle, you're more likely, this is the theory going back to that, probably were bit by one of those. I never had a bullseye rash, I was never bit by a tick. You probably were bit by one of those little ticks that you didn't see, so we tend to blame them more, but it's still carried. If you go to East Stroudsburg University, they have a great, they'll do all your ticks for free, and they'll check every tick. And the big ticks and the little ticks, they all carry it. They all carry it at the same rate. So we blame the deer tick, and we also blame the deer. It's not the deer, it's the mice. The mice are what carry it. So it's when we don't have cold winters, so we don't kill off the mice. That's when we have the largest explosion of Lyme disease, because they survive on the mouse, and the mouse is what we call them deer ticks, and we call the big ones dog ticks. Like dogs get a free ride, but that's not so. But they're the little, and those little ticks, that's not their species. They grow up to become big ticks. So a deer tick one year is a dog tick the next year. It's the same tick, and so it goes around. And then there's the Lone Starry tick. It looks like, and they carry the Lone Starry. That's a specific one. Then you can't eat meat after you've been bit by that tick. So they all carry it, but it is coming along more and more and more and more. But now that we're actually capturing ticks and testing ticks, they're saying, up to 50% of ticks, 60% of ticks in some counties carry a tick-borne illness, including Lyme disease. So the odds are better.
Unfortunately, I just heard it was 75%.
75. It grows every day. So to answer your question, we blame the deer tick, and the reason we do is because we miss those. You missed that you were bit by that tick. So they don't carry with increased prevalence.
Yep.
I don't know how easy of an answer this is, but if someone had got Lyme disease back 20-some years ago, when it's not even heard of, and so they weren't treated right away because no one ever heard of it, and finally started getting it, but still today is considered chronic Lyme because they still can't work, they still can't function.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on in their body that you have seen that's causing that?
I had a patient that just came in for his second appointment today, 66-year-old man, chronic fatigue. No one knows what's wrong with him. His son and he hunted and fished down in Maryland, and his son was walking through and scouting out where they were going to hunt, and he kind of got wading in like waist-high water and thought that he had mud on his arms and his leg. So they went to dinner, and he's like, I can't get this mud off of my leg. It was thousands of ticks all over him, on his leg and his arm. So when he came in to see me, I still have a picture of that, but when he came in to see me about 2.5 years ago, he had just had it about a year, which still was, in our world, a little bit more chronic, but he's done a lot better. But really, ultimately, it's about health of host and how healthy were they when they got bit. What's the stress capacity, but the collateralization that happens from the immune system that will affect thyroid, adrenals, gut, you have to look at that all on an individual basis. So thankfully, he's done really well. Now his father, the 66-year-old gentleman that came in, has finally come in and said, I'm tired of just never feeling good, and they always give me the same answer, and there's nothing else that I can do to help myself. Please help me. So we went all over through his blood work today. And what they had done before, they tested him for Lyme disease the right way, and it came up negative. Unfortunately for him, when I did the advanced test on him, knowing that he already had a negative test, he tested not for Lyme disease, but he tested for Babesia and Bartonella, which are still tick-borne infections, and it can still drive a lot of health problems, but it's not Lyme disease. And so part of the challenge is expanding our knowledge and understanding of tick-borne infections, not just Lyme disease as one of the tick-borne infections. And so that was a big part of his problem. But this gentleman has had 26 years or 29 years, I think it was, of problems dealing with, all these things dealing with Lyme. So he's got a massive hip arthritis, which Bartonella can certainly do, because that's a differential diagnosis with degenerative hip. He has tons of morning feet and ankle pain, a lot of swelling in his feet. Bartonella is very classic to do that. He has air hunger a lot. He's always had exercise-induced issues. He created a gluten allergy. His gluten problem was reactive. So all these things that start to happen for the body to start to try and balance that out over his lifetime. But interestingly, the one test that we run for his immune system, it's called a CD57 test. It's a natural killer cell test. And we use it to say, okay, well, where are you at and how kind of weak did your immune system get? And his was really, really good. Way better than a lot of my other patients that I see. And I'm sure Dr. Turnpaugh can kind of attest to this in a second, but his immune system wasn't that bad. But of course, he's having a ton of degenerative problems over the course of his lifetime. And the conversation we had was, he was thankful that he finally got answers, that we're going to move in the right direction, but certainly, a lot of tears later and crying that he's lost 26 years. So there's always hope that we can kind of move forward. And yes, chronic Lyme, unfortunately, is devastating, but Lyme disease is the great imitator. It imitates and mimics everything. And it's certainly unfortunate, but, if anything that we can kind of explain to, patients and or providers is we just need to come to an understanding, just have that appropriate testing conversation. And unfortunately, with sometimes with the traditional testing, it's not super sensitive to always pick it up, which is why the Horowitz questionnaire has been empirically verified to say, if you've got all of these different symptoms, we have a Lyme questionnaire on our website. If you fill it out, you can kind of see where you land. But that specifically, if you have it be a high level, is enough to say you need an antibiotic, not necessarily just a bullseye. Bell's palsy is certainly a really initial presentation, oftentimes, and or a positive Lyme test. But chronic Lyme, we certainly see those all the time. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I think to be honest, there sometimes is a point of no return. There's a good book called What Lurks in the Woods, and it's written by Mrs. Bell, and her husband was Russ Bell. And I was able to jump in on the case very late, but he had already had end-stage dementia from his Lyme disease. So he passed away from it. And she's dedicated her life into earlier detection and correction. And my uncle was the third case of Lyme disease ever diagnosed, and he passed away with frontal lobe dementia that looked like syphilis. But it wasn't Lyme disease. But it looked exactly like Lyme. Of course it was Lyme disease, but he went to Yale.
Did he live up in?
He lived in Connecticut. He lived in Mystic, Connecticut, and he was the third case ever diagnosed. And he went to Yale, and they said it's frontal lobe dementia that looks like syphilis, but it can't be Lyme disease because that's not how it presents. So that's
for those of you who don't know, Lyme disease was named after Lyme, Connecticut, where it started.
And there's people that suffer for 26 years that can get better, but I'm going to be honest, there's people that suffer from 26 years that are over the cliff that don't get better. So just to be realistic, there's some tragic stories and bad outcomes. And Nicole Bell, who wrote the book, she wrote the book not because she had a good outcome, because she knows it was a terrible outcome, and she goes through the painful story of it. But she's doing it in the hopes that people can get earlier and better detection. So the sooner you get it and the sooner after you get it, the better. But is there hope? Yes, but not for everybody, because sometimes it is a little bit too far.
Yep. Sorry if I'm skipping this. Did you hear the question? Why do some people have? Oh, yeah. I don't have a great answer for that.
Why does it linger in some and not in others?
Yeah.
So
other than immune regulation.
It comes to the health of the host. The other thing is he referred to these things called biofilms, and he used the wiffle ball and the bowling ball. I use the bee's nest. So these bees are in the nest. When the bees are in the nest, they don't sting you. When they come out of the nest, they sting you. When they're in the nest, they're in a different phase. When they come out of the nest, they're called a planktonic phase. They can only sting you when they come out of the nest. When you take an antibiotic, by definition, the nest gets bigger. So when you take an antibiotic, you're growing your bees' nests. Fact, every single time. You get a bigger bees' nest when you take an antibiotic. So some people only feel good when they take the antibiotic because the bees are in the nest, but the nest gets bigger. They come off the antibiotic and now the bees come out. So that's a nasty thing. There's some things you do to poke holes in the bees' nest, make them come out so that you can die. And sometimes you do fine because it's dormant. These biofilms, or these bees' nests, we all have. So most of us have had chickenpox, but not everybody has shingles today, right? Chickenpox, when it reactivates down the road, comes out as shingles. Shingles come out when we're stressed, immune compromised. So when our immune systems go down, the bees can come out of the nest. That's the same way it is for everything. And so for Lyme disease, when it goes dormant, maybe it's just below that threshold, so you're feeling good, and then it comes out, and then it goes back, and then it comes out, and then it goes back, and that happens a lot. So you want to reduce your pathogenic burden, right? You want to reduce that as much as possible, but I would argue, and I'm right, that if
You're
you
always
take
right.
an antibiotic to bring it below threshold, you also grew your bee's nest. So you have to do more than just that. But that's why a lot of people struggle, because they take an antibiotic, they feel good, they got it below a certain level, it doesn't take long, and they're back, so it keeps coming back, and they have to go on antibiotics, off antibiotics. You got to pulse them, you got to do this, you got to take it at 2 as opposed to 4. It becomes a dance to keep your pathogenic burden low, and the reality is to understand, how am I killing them when they're out of the nest? And antibiotics are great at that. They're really, really great at killing the bees out of the nest. There's other things that are great at it too, but there's things that kill the bees as they come out of the nest. And then there's other things that help to reduce the size of the nest. If you only do the antibiotics, you're going to feel better at times when you're on them, and then you're going to come off and it's going to be this bouncing back and forth. And that's where people get discouraged and say, I just want to stay on the antibiotic for life because it's the only time I feel good because I'm on the antibiotic. And when that happens, your bee's nests get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And if that bee's nest is in your brain, it's going to look like tau protein plaques, and we're going to label you with dementia one day because you took antibiotics enough to get these big, big, big biofilms in your brain that lead to scar tissue, like my uncle. So,
I'm definitely going to steal that. It's better than the bowling ball. Yeah, it's way better than the bowling ball thing.
Just to tie that all together is the gut needs to have healing. We need to prevent the leaky gut as we're managing treatment under Lyme disease.
I would say it's much like I talked about children. If you're not working on your gut, it's a prescription for failure, right? You know, I will brag on him a little bit. We had a pretty famous case come through, but it wasn't famous at the time until he got a hold of it. She had done tons of antibiotics and she was frustrated. She was going to leave the office, and he said, so it went from one clinician in her office to him, which is the team approach, right? Team Turnpaugh. We came to him and he's like, you're still eating eggs. She cut eggs out of her diet. Her life changed. It was the eggs that allowed that constant stressor to her body that mimicked the Lyme disease. So yes, you have to fix that. Tell another, I've been around, I'm not that old, but I've been around long enough to see some really, really, really crazy stuff that I wouldn't believe unless it happened in my office. I have a patient, when they eat gluten, their bullseye rash comes back on their arm. The actual Lyme rash comes back from eating gluten. So to think that gluten doesn't, it mimics the exact disease that sent them into the office. So your best approach is to fix all 4 legs of the chair. One of the legs is your gut. You have to fix the gut.
Yeah. And to that, I have a patient that had Lyme, is recovered, but gluten is so sensitive to her, she walks into Panera or anywhere they make bread and she can't walk. So she has gluten ataxia and she can't walk. They thought she had MS, but it's just gluten reactivity, she's that sensitive to it. So when you say, thing likes me now.
Sharing a wealth.
I know I love you, but geez.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, it's a huge problem, and easily, if one leg's weak, it's gonna fall over. The case is gonna fail.
There's a study that I put up when I do this at times. You cannot get this is in the literature, you cannot get an autoimmune disease without having leaky gut. You cannot progress to an autoimmune disease of any kind without previously having leaky gut. That's in the scientific literature. You must get, they call it intestinal permeability because leaky gut sounds too lay. So intestinal permeability must precede an autoimmune disease.
Good.
Would diabetes be considered autoimmune disease?
Type 1. And then there's a type 2 as you progress. If your diet is bad enough that you're autoimmune, you can kick on autoimmunity. It's called late onset autoimmune diabetes. But diabetes type 1, where you destroy or attack the islet cells of the pancreas, usually you'll see that at birth or a little bit later is an autoimmune disease. Last one more question? Yeah.
Do you have any comments on stevia or xylitol as sugar substitutes, and then also as antibacterial?
Okay.
Stevia is a tremendous biofilm disruptor. So that breaks your bee's nest up. Now, if you take stevia and you don't tolerate it, it could be because you broke up the bee's nest and the bees are flying all over the place. So stevia can be a great sugar substitute, but it is a phenomenal biofilm disruptor. You can get really expensive biofilm disruptors, or you can take stevia. So stevia will break up your bee's nest.
Or coconut oil.
And but when it breaks it open, remember, you now have planktonic bugs, so they're out to sting you. So stevia works very well. Xylitol, to a less of an extent, does the same. Xylitol is a sugar alcohol, so you can have alcohol. You can have any kind of alcohol intolerance, and all of your sugars that ends in alls, they're alcohol sugars, and they can be they can cause diarrhea, so you have to be careful of it. So what I would say, and I don't know what Dr. Shannon would say, I would say that stevia is a plant-based sweetener. I have no problem with that. The sugar alcohols, they're better than some, but I'd still prefer you got your sweetness from fruit, or not tons of fruit, but just from your food itself. But I don't think they're bad. I think we've come to know, and I've been humbled by my own ignorance over 26 years, but stevia actually has tremendous health benefits in many patients, and understanding what it's doing for people that took stevia and crashed and they said, oh, I can't do stevia. Maybe we just didn't understand that it was doing something beneficial, like breaking up the biofilm. So maybe there's a rate limiting step. You can handle a little stevia, break those bees' nests open a little bit, but if you have too much of it, it rips too much open at one time.
If you're looking for like a sweetener that's a little bit of an alternative, agave tends to be a lot better, and it's not a biofilm disruptor from what I'm remembering.
Agave is not a biofilm disruptor.
Yeah, so if you're looking for something that you can handle, that's a sweetener, that's not high fructose corn syrup, that's not a biofilm disruptor, agave tends to be a best bet.
I don't mind stevia though. I don't mind.
I don't like stevia either. I like agave.
I mean, I don't mind it for patients, and I just let them know that you might have a negative reaction, and it might not be to stevia, it might be to the effects of what stevia is doing on your body.
Question? I mean, they're absolutely needed. The pre and probiotics specifically, we had this conversation on the way up here. I do a lot of mast cell, I see a lot of mast cell patients. Mast cell is more of a histamine and an immune dysregulation when patients get into that. A lot of different symptoms. But there was a study that came out that showed that specifically bifidobacteria in a probiotic has really helped down-regulate massive histamine responses. So actually I've been using high-dose bifidobacteria on some of my mast cell patients, jury's still out, but it looks like it's doing fairly well to down-regulate their extreme histamine reactions. So there's so many different probiotics, prebiotics out there. Prebiotics tend to obviously help feed the inulin fibers, feed the probiotic. Oftentimes I'll start with Saccharomyces boulardii as a foundational. It's obviously very good for an antifungal approach, but I like that because it's one thing that one strain that a lot of people can handle, and then I kind of build on top of that with different types of probiotics. I tend to use a lot of like histamine lowering probiotics. Lactobacillus rhamnosus is a good one, but the bifidobacteria, and then the spore-based, I know you use a lot of spore-based, so I'll throw it over to you.
But remember, what's this pinky finger on the hand of health? How and what you eat. So what's a prebiotic? Mostly vegetable fibers. You know what's considered a specialty crop? Only 8% of the crops grown are specialty crops. You know what they are? Fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables are considered specialty crops, and they're 8% of the crops grown in the world today. So if we ate vegetables, and we'd have our vegetable fibers, that's our short-chain fatty acids, that would give us our prebiotics. If we ate dirt that wasn't sprayed that wasn't sprayed with stuff that kill bugs, we would get normal bugs in our food. So we didn't have probiotic in pills 100 years ago. If you're a vaginal birth, one of our nurses was a midwife beforehand, and whenever she would deliver, she'd reach her hand in the vagina of the woman and slap it all over the kid's face. That's where you get your first probiotics from. And you can tell a gut, whether in a gut of a 50-year-old, whether they were cesarean or vaginal birth, because that's what grows in the gut, and that's what pollinates the gut. But it comes from, if it's lactobacillus based, it comes from milk. If it's spore based, it comes from dirt, and it typically comes from live soil, which you kill when you spray. So the pinky, now at 53, if I've not done it well, I'm not going to get it from my food. I'm going to have to get it from a supplement. But to a newborn, let's feed them some dirt and let's give them some vegetables. and then they're going to get their prebiotics and their probiotics. So I think that I just had to jump in there.
You're good.
Jump in on the pinky. Like,
Takes me back to all those times I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot about that, but that's him. I told him we might use him when he comes along, so of course, we're good. Any other questions? I know Dr. Turnpaugh has to get back. I'm sticking around. Graciously, I know I have a bed and breakfast I'm going to hang out to and then go home tomorrow. But really, Sue, thank you so much for allowing us to come up. I would love to come back. I'll stick around for some more questions. But again, thank you very much, and we're very blessed to be here. So thank you very much.